Hi guys, welcome back to Living Small with Rose and Getting Smaller by the Day, a real life channel where we talk about major life changes in your 40s, tiny home living, tiny home camper renovation, tips and tricks, things I like, things I don't like, nature scenery, all sorts of filming of local events. I do a lot of different things. I like to stay busy. I can't handle being bored. So today I've been doing a 3-part series about a topic I don't touch on a lot, about God. A topic about God. Sorry, I had a face itch. And when I'm talking about this, I want you to understand that I'm not crazy. I am talking about this for a reason. And the reason for that being is that things have not been really easy lately, but as long as I keep doing my best to do the right thing all the time, my life gets a little bit better and it gets a little bit easier. So, I quit my job yesterday. and I'm not going to say bad things about the employer that I was working for. All I'm going to say about this is that we have a different value system and that their core beliefs do not match my core beliefs in some ways, and that there were some things there that just were not going to work out for me. And that's okay. I know that I did the best I could, and I realized that I wasn't going to work out there, and that was not the place for me any further. I really liked the prior owner, and her and her family were amazing to me. I had no issues. I liked going to my job. And all I'm going to say about this is that everything in the environment in the job changed with new ownership, and I didn't want to go to work anymore. It didn't feel healthy, and I became very frustrated. There are many things in my life that need to be reliable, and my pay is one of them. And I have bills to pay on certain days, and some things just weren't lining up the way that they were supposed to, and I felt that it was not going to work for me, and that it was putting me in a bad financial position when my finances had been very stable before with the prior owner, and everything had flipped upwards, and my income went down by almost 75%. And so there was just things that weren't working out for me, and my values just did not match with the environment. So, this being said, the prior day, some things happened where our pay didn't go through, and I decided I wasn't going to go to work that day. I'm a person where if I don't get paid, I don't work. That's the way that I'm wired. That's what I believe in. I have principles. I have values. And I've worked for 2 different companies where I got ripped off on pay. And so I get very uncomfortable when pay changes, when there's a bit of a conflict because it didn't go through when it was supposed to. I need reliability. I have to know when my bills are paid. So I had a conflict, and I decided that it wasn't going to work for me. So I had decided not to go to this shift, and I was very, very clear about this. And I said very loudly and clearly, if I don't get paid, I don't work. And I walked out the back door, and I left and said that I was not going to be in for my shift that evening, which is maybe sounds grouchy and cranky, but I had some very good reasons for this. There was some other things going on that were against my principles and my core value system of what I expect from an employer and what my expectations are for my job. And so I had decided that night, I felt okay with things. I talked to God about it a little bit, and I kept telling myself, I'm doing the right thing here and God will provide. It will be okay if I leave this environment that is not working for me. If I do so and I have the right reasons, God will provide. And I kept telling myself this. And then I woke up yesterday morning and I was second guessing myself. And I was laying there in bed and I had this dialogue going where I was like benefiting, or well, I was weighing on my mental scale of scales and balances what I was losing by losing this job and what I was leaving and what the risks were for me financially. And I got kind of scared about it. And I laid there and I thought about going to work. And I thought about having to go into an environment I didn't want to be in and to look at people that I didn't really want to be around and to know that it was affecting my entire outlook of how I felt about things. There's certain things in my job I take pride in, and I want to be in an environment where that is cultivated and where people are encouraged and it feels good to go to work and you go to work with pride and you have positive engagements with your customers. And I do not feel like this is what was happening. And so I started to guess myself, and I started to have these doubts, and I was like, well, I'm still on the schedule. I have not actually quit yet, and they could fire me if they want to. Would I be upset if they fired me? And I realized I didn't care if they did. And then I thought about my attitude and about what was me having a bad attitude and what wasn't, and I was attempting to hold myself accountable. And so I went through this whole thought process, and I agonized about this for probably a good hour and a half. And then I looked at the time and I was like, well, I'm not supposed to be there until 3:30. This gives me a little bit of time to think about this decision. And so I sat there and I started my resignation letter. I still was having some misgivings in my head, and I was still worried about this, and I kept telling myself, no, God will provide. I'm doing the right thing here. I'm saying why I'm leaving. I'm telling my employer the very true reasons. I'm confronting the issue that I have with them. I'm being direct. I'm being honest. I'm being precise. I'm being clean. I'm being fair. And I said how I felt. I hit send. And I felt all this inner peace. And then I thought to myself, this is going to be okay. This is going to be fine. I will figure it out. Everything will be fine. And so I kind of had a little bit of depression going on yesterday where I was worrying about things and I was thinking about things. And all this mental clarity popped into my head. And I went online and I started applying and doing the application for my business license. And I've decided that if I don't do it now and I keep going according to my 3-year plan that I've been working on for 2 years already, that I'm going to keep having one reason or another to procrastinate and not move forward. And so I felt like I was getting a push in the right direction. And then today I said, well, and I also made plans for this last night. I thought, my work schedule has kept me out of church for months on end. And I miss my church. I miss my fellowship with my people of the same faith and seeing them every Sunday and being consistent and talking more to my higher power and having those discussions. I will say right now I am Christian and I don't talk about it a lot on the channel because I kind of believe everybody has their own higher power, and who am I to judge anybody else for what they believe? So, and I feel like people get argumentative about religion and I don't choose to engage in that. But I've decided to be open about this today because I was kind of getting into a dark place in my head about this. I really was feeling rotten about it, really second guessing my decision. And then I had this feeling of peace when I sent that resignation letter. And I realized that I was going to be fine. So I went to church this morning and I hadn't been in a while, so there were some things that were different. But one of the great things that was different is that I ran into some friends of mine there that had joined the church, and I didn't know that they had joined my church. And that touched me in a really good place right here. It was wonderful to see them. I kind of had some job thoughts and some things fall into my lap that I wasn't expecting. And I have decided to go back into medical, and that I'm actually okay to do so now. I've decided that I need to go back to a place of service to the community and go back to doing medical, and that my spot of occupational burnout that I was going through is gone now. I am ready to go back to that, and I'm going to work it out. And I have it figured out. I have a plan. I'm going to be back to work in the next few days, and everything is good. God placed things in my lap in a perfect sequence when I was worried and I was stressed, and all I needed to do was look to Him and have that internal dialogue and go to church and get my fellowship back and have my connection back. So if you are in a position where you are genuinely questioning your morals and ethics and values because of an environment that you're in, and you're feeling trapped because you have children, you have financial responsibilities, you're worrying about paying your bills, I looked at things and I realized I have a month to work this out. I can manage this month. This coming up month, I will be fine. And that with my financial planning, as long as I stay the course, I will be fine. God will provide. He is providing for me now. He will continue to provide. And as long as I listen and do the things that I'm supposed to do and act right, even though it's going to be hard, and doing the right thing is often hard, that God will provide for me. So that is the third thing in this series that God has done for me. God has provided. I left my job on no notice and I walked away from an unhealthy situation and immediately have gone into a better situation just by having faith. God will provide. Thank you so much for watching my 3-part series about the 3 things that God has done for me lately. My life is actually improving, even though I've made rash decisions. I look to God and everything is okay.